both for QA and DI, quantitative thought and the development of that. If you can organize your development of quantitative thought correctly, it'll go a long way in developing your ability to crack the cat. Now, one of the things that has always been of interest to me as a trainer and as somebody who both trains people for the cat as well as writes books for the cat exam. You can watch me now on the video. I've just shared my webcam with you. So what I was trying to tell you is one of the things which has always been a critical interest issue for me has been that when you talk about people who crack the cat, you have one set of people who can be described as the naturals, people who are natural at cracking this exam. My continuous and constant endeavor through my training programs and through my books and through my research on preparation for this exam has always been that if somebody is a non-natural at cracking aptitude, can he still compete against the naturals? And I'm going to show you through the session today. And after my session, you'll have a session with Minakshi ma'am, who's unfortunately not available today live. So we'll be playing a recorded session of hers of the last demo session that she took, so that you'll get to see the quality at which she would be able to interact with you. So the key point, the answer that we have seen both in QA, DI, and verbal and reasoning is that yes, it is very possible to shift somebody from a 70 percentiler to a 99 percentiler. It is just about making him or her organize his thoughts or her thoughts and making the thoughts more efficient and more concrete and indefatigable. That means thoughts which cannot be defeated. So if you can work it that way, any 70 percentiler can actually move to 99 percentile, and hence even a 99 percentiler can move to the 99.9 percentile range. It's actually very simple if you understand the process correctly. And that's what I want to show you today in this session as we move on. So, the gist of my discussion with you, uh, for instance, now in this part of the session where I'm doing the QA and DI discussion, the gist of my discussion with you is to show you the difference between mathematical thinking and quantitative thinking. That's what I'm trying to show you as we move on in this session. And I'll be showing that to you through two dimensions. We'll see whether we'll have time. And in fact, our entire course is built to show you this through both these dimensions, through theory problem solving and through a theory illustration. So, both through problem solving and through a theory illustration, I'll try to show you why quantitative thought and learning quantitative thought is the way to go for you when it comes to cracking this exam. So maybe what I'll do is, before I start the problems, because the problems take more time, let me just show you a small thought process of how mathematical thinking and quantitative thinking differ, and how quantitative thinking can be much more superior to mathematical thinking. Let me do that with a small 4 minute illustration of something as basic as the HCF of numbers. When you want to find the HCF of, let's say, two or three numbers, suppose you're finding the HCF of 24, 34, and 52. The process of the HCF, the mathematical process of the HCF, tells us that you should factorize each of these into its prime factor. So this is 2 cube into 8, sorry, 2 cube into 3. This is 2 raised to 1 into 17. And this is 2 square into 13 raised to 1. And then you look at all these factors, prime factors, and the common prime factors with their least powers becomes the answer. So the common prime factor between these three is just 2, and the least power of 2 is 2 raised to 1. Now the problem with this method is dual. One is you really can't do this problem without writing down. You cannot do it orally. So you'll have to write down this component. This component will have to be written down for you. Unless you write it down correctly, you cannot really get the HCF. And the other problem, of course, is if the numbers become slightly bigger, suppose the numbers are 90, 104 and 117, in that situation, doing this process, the prime factors itself will take a lot of time. So what is the bypass to this? The quantitative bypass to this small situation, which is very critical in maths, because where do you use the HCF? You use the HCF, you're solving some problem, and within the problem you realize that I need the HCF of these three numbers. And then you need the HCF as an input to something else. So at that point, if you're finding the HCF goes into this kind of problem solving with so much writing involved, your whole problem, the problem you're trying to solve, gets derailed. Instead of that, let me show you what is possible here. When you look at 24, 34 and 52, what you could do for the HCF is take the difference between any two numbers. So right now we have three differences here, 10, 18 and 28. Take any one of them. You don't need to calculate all three. So ideally take the smallest one, or if there's a prime number, take that one. Why? It will be clear to you. Now the contention I'm giving you is that if this difference is 10 between these two, the HCF of 24, 34, and not just 24, 34 and 50, or not just 24 and 34, but the HCF of all these three numbers, 24, 34 and 52, would be amongst the divisors of 10. So if you scan the divisors of 10, you get the divisors as 10, 5, 2 and 1. And all you then need to do after that is to check whether 10 is the HCF of these four numbers. And you can clearly see that 10 does not divide 24, hence it cannot be the HCF. You look at 5, you start from the largest number and keep checking each one, and the first one which will divide all of them will become the HCF. You look at 5 and you know that 5 does not divide 24, hence 5 is not the HCF. And 2 divides 24, 34 as well as 52, hence the HCF becomes 2. So this process is a 3 to 5 second process for the HCF, something that mathematics teaches us to do in over a minute and a half with a lot of writing. I'm not even calculating the writing time involved when you do something like this. So there are so many nuances to the theory where quantitative thought can actually simplify your thought process so much that it could totally change your process of solving and hence change your outcomes while solving mathematical problems. Now, the next part of this session, I'm going to show you how to learn quantitative thought and what is our strategy of learning quantitative thought, of teaching you quantitative thought. Alok Kaushik says that my voice is not audible. Is that a problem with many people, or is it only at Alok's end? Are the other people able to hear me? Right. So is the voice fine? And you can see this. We have uh, a situation in terms of the classroom right now. We have people from across the country, and we all sitting together in the comfort of our homes. And I'm teaching you this topic. And as a teacher, for me, I have everything I need to communicate. I have a PowerPoint presentation. I have a whiteboard or a blackboard on which I can write whatever I want. And you can even see me. And as you can realize through the question window on your webinar panel, you can actually ask me questions immediately. So I did not quite get that. Please explain it again. Or I got that very well. All these things are things that you could actually communicate to the teacher immediately as the class goes, which is something which in a normal classroom will be very difficult for you to do. Many of our students give us this feedback that when they study the classes, they almost feel that it is a one-to-one class because uh, you are focusing directly with the teacher, and whatever the teacher is teaching is going directly into your computer and hence into your mind. So automatically, what happens is that you get connected to some of the best teachers in the country from the comfort of your living room without having to travel even a single minute. And naturally, it gives you a huge boost towards your preparation because it saves you time, it saves you effort, it saves you money, and it gives you better learning. Time, effort, money you don't bother about if the learning is better in different situations. But as you can see, I can explain almost anything to you. So is that HCF logic clear to all of you? Is the HCF logic clear? There is a small illustration of theory of how quantitative thought can be inserted into theory snippets which can change the way you think about mathematical problem solving. So, if you're trying to solve 90, 104, and 117, if you're trying to do the LCM of this, HCF of this, just take the difference of 13 here, and 13 being a prime number, the only factors of 13 are 1 and 13, and we can clearly see that 13 is not the HCF of these numbers because 13 does not divide 90, and hence 1 will be the HCF of these numbers. It's a 3 to 5 second process. That is all it takes. Himayu Sophie has a question. He has raised your hand. Could you put your question on the chat log or on the question log, Himayu? I have put down your hand from here. Could you, if you have a doubt, Himayu is asking me to repeat the HCF logic. Himayu, the HCF logic is this, that whenever you have 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers, whatever number of numbers you have, whose HCF you want to find, what you can do feasibly is take the difference between any two of them. So in this case, in three numbers, you have three possible differences: 90, 117, 90, 104, and 104 and 17. If there were four numbers, 90, 104, 117, and 147, then you will have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 differences. And the best part of the differences is that you take any one, no matter whether there are four numbers or 100 numbers, it doesn't matter. So I can clearly see in this problem that I've just written here in white ink that the difference between 104 and 117 is 13. So naturally, if 13 is the difference, the factors of 13 will be 13 and 1. So the possible HCFs of all these numbers, not just 104 and 117, the possible HCF of all these numbers is either 13, and if 13 is not the HCF, then it will be 1. There can be no other possibility given that there is a difference of 13 between two of these numbers in the set. And after that, the only thing you do is you try to check whether 13 is the HCF physically. So when you divide 90 by 13, you see that it is not divisible, which means that 13 is not the HCF, and naturally 1 becomes the HCF. And that's the answer. Jyoti Ranjan says, what if the difference between them is equal to the third number? It doesn't matter, Jyoti. Suppose there's 3, 7, and 4. If this difference is 4, it doesn't matter whether it's equal to the third number or not. The HCF will be a factor of 4, so it means it can only be 1, 2, or 4. Because 1, 2, and 4 are the only factors of 4. A small thought, this is class 6th. HCF is something you learn in class 6. But unfortunately, they never tell you how to actually do HCF smartly. And right through school, you've been doing HCF by taking out prime factors of the numbers. And you can imagine that process, if applied to this situation, how much time it will take. Right? Now, Lilesh Raj is asking me, what will be the solution if the difference is large? Now, my response to that will be that, Nilesh, if you look at the past uh, situations where HCF has been required in aptitude problem solving, HCF would typically be required of numbers in 2 digits to maximum 3 digits, and even if it goes to the 3 digits, it's going to be the early 3 digits. So you'll not, technically I can ask you the question, find the HCF of 2764, 7144, and 8628. But this is not an aptitude situation. It is not an aptitude situation. Hence, you don't need to bother about this. Whenever you find HCF within a problem in the actual exam of aptitude, any exam of aptitude you take, whether it's CAT, CSAT, or any other exam, it will be a 2 digit number in front of you. It will be a set of 2 digit numbers in front of you that will be working. Right? So, having talked about that, now Our training for this exam goes through three phases for you. When we do the first phase for quants and DI, we naturally go chapter wise, where we look at the possible shortcuts and the logics similar to what I just gave you, the best logics on every possible question dimension. That's our first objective. And plus, during this time, we also want to expose you, we want to give you exposure to problems. So, this exposure to problems is your initial exposure to problems. After that, we move to phase two of our training. In a disaster here, just take a different chair. Right, that was scary. Anyway, luckily I didn't get hurt. So the point I was trying to make was after that we moved to phase two of our training, and in phase two, the whole logic or the basic objective is to give you problem exposure, and through problem exposure, the key objective of problem exposure is to take you to a point where when you reach the CAT, when you enter the CAT exam and you see a question inside the CAT exam, there could be four different reactions to that question. One reaction could be, yes, I know the question. A second reaction could be, yes, I know the logic. A third reaction could be, yes, I can try. And a fourth reaction could be, no idea. Now, for your information, when you prepare for this CAT exam, and I can tell you this from my personal experience of having cracked this exam 13 times, that when you solve something like this, or when you reach a question in the exam and you have either reaction 1 or reaction 2, if you have any of reaction 1 or 2, your work is done. On the other hand, if you go to reaction 3, this actually is the most dangerous reaction in aptitude problem solving, because when you start trying a question, when you start trying a question, that's when you do not know where to draw the line, and the amount of time you end up taking actually creates an imbalance. It creates an imbalance between your attempts and your time available. Hence, an ideal structure in the CAT is that if you find 30 questions on quants and DI, an ideal student, a well prepared student, will have the following structure: 18 to 20 questions out of 30 questions for him will fall under category 2. 4 to 6 questions would fall under category 1. 3 to 4 questions will fall under category 3. And the remaining 3-4 questions might go into the no idea zone. So, the point I'm trying to make, and the whole focus of a program through phase 2, is that for every chapter in mathematics, or for every question type in DI, we want to expose you to every kind of problem that could be there, that could be asked. And the more your exposure is, and what we have seen is that typically if your exposure to problems is around 3,000 to 4,000 questions, your whole problem solving experience changes in the exam, because your grip of the question, your grip of the logic goes much higher. And I hope you realize that when you work for objective 2 during a preparation, objective 1 will automatically happen in 10-20% cases. So if you reach, out of 30 questions, if you reach 20 questions where you know the logic, in 5 questions, additional questions, you will also know the entire question. Now, why do I call this the most critical aspect of preparation process? Question exposure and understanding and knowing a question beforehand makes a world of difference to your problem solving experience in the test. So what I'm trying to tell you here is that if there are two students who are equally intelligent, let's say X and Y, or let's say X and a version of X which is better prepared, X and X1. In a 30 question paper, if X has an outcome where he knows the logic in 5 to 7 questions, he knows the question in 1 to 2 questions, and he can try another 15 questions, and he is in the no idea zone in, let's say, 5 to 7 questions. This is scenario 1 for X. Scenario 2 is he knows the question around 4 to 5. He knows the logic, or he's seen similar logic around 15 to 17. He can try around 5, and the no idea is around 2 3. If this is his structure, the same person will have a completely different experience of the same exam if he can create the structure for himself. So the battle for the cat, the battle you're fighting, is to focus your energies to the point on preparation, to the point where when you enter a test, you don't see too many new questions. You see questions, most of the questions you have already known. And when something like this happens, the momentum that you get makes you cross over even the trial questions. And if you solve this way, you'll realize that 70 minutes for this section is a huge amount of time. As you know, the quants DI section is giving you 30 questions these days, with approximately 20 questions on quants and 10 on DI. And it gives you 70 minutes. You'll realize that if you and I know the logic most of the time, you do not need more than 35-40 minutes to complete the paper. Now, to put my money where my mouth is, I actually have picked up a set of questions to show you how knowing the logic to a question beforehand helps you in solving a problem? Let's start off with this question. I want you to start. I'm going to give you 2 3 minutes on this question, and I want you to try to solve this one using whatever logic you know. And for that time, I'm going to be muted. I'm giving you 2 to 3 minutes to solve this, and I'm going to show you through 3 questions here why I tell you that picking up the logic and knowing the logic before reaching a question can be so enlightening and so life changing inside an exam like the CAT. Have a look at this question, try to solve it, and then I'll come into the solution. Muted during this time. Right, so I'm getting a few answers. Nilesh, your answer is right. Jyoti Ranjan, your answers are wrong. You need to check what you have done. Now, let me first show you the mathematical process for this. Let's first understand what is happening in this problem. Let's first understand what's happening in this problem. If you look at this problem, the problem says, a boy starts adding consecutive natural numbers starting from 1, and after some time reaches a total of 1000. So, your first thing you should realize is that what the boy is doing is he is adding consecutive natural numbers starting from 1, and after some time reaches a total of 1000. When he realizes that he has made an error of double counting a number. So you first need to understand what does double counting create and what are we talking about here. So if you're solving this problem for the first time, this is how you'll start thinking. That if he adds 1 plus 2 plus 3, his total should be 6. But by mistake, if he adds a 2 extra, his total will go up to 8. And this is his wrong total, and this would be his correct total. And if you want to find out which number he double counted, which is what the question is asking us, we need to find a difference between the wrong total minus the correct total. Incidentally, this correct total of 1 plus 2 plus 3, like 6, or 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, like 15, like 10, these are called as triangular numbers. Why they are called as triangular numbers? Yes, Jyoti, that's the right answer. Why they are called triangular numbers is because if you build a pyramid of balls, this is how the pyramid will appear at any point of time, and the number of balls in the pyramid, which is basically a triangle, will always be an addition of natural numbers 1, 1 plus 2, 1 plus 2 plus 3, and so on. So the number of balls in this pyramid will either be 1, 3, 6, 10, 15, and so on, depending on how many rows you take. That's why it's called a triangular number. So coming back from there, so for instance, suppose this problem had said that he reaches a total of 14 when he realizes made an error. How would you trace the double counted number? The answer would be that if you start adding consecutive natural numbers, if you have added till 3, 1 plus 2 plus 3, your total is 6. And by double counting one of these three numbers, it is not possible to reach 14 because maximum you can go up to is 9. On the other hand, if you go to 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, his total becomes 10, and from there reaching 14 can happen by double counting the number 4. And further you can realize that if you go to 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5, your total becomes 15, and if you double count something, you cannot reach 14 because your total will be more than 15 then. So with this basic understanding, you realize that when you want to solve this question for 1000, you first want to know the triangular number just below 1000. You're looking for the triangular number just below 1000. And when you want to do that, then the target becomes to find out till where you want to add. Now, if you think mathematically from this point, mathematical thinking will give you the formula n into n plus 1 by 2, which is the sum of consecutive natural numbers. This should be less than 1000, and in fact, we should say that to ourselves that this should be just less than 1000, because that is how we'll be able to trace the incorrect addition, the double counted number. This in turn gives us n into n plus 1 should be just less than 2000, which in turn gives us that n square plus n should be just less than 2000. And then finding the value of n which will satisfy this will become a challenge. It will become a challenge that cannot be done in 10-15 seconds, under pressure, especially. It will take you a minute or two, especially if your calculations are not very strong. It will take you maybe more. And that's where, inside the exam, you start losing control of the question, of the problem. Of course, if you can trace this, you'll be able to trace the value of n as 44, and at n at 44, with n at 40 as 44, n into n plus 1 by 2 will give 990, and then you realize that 990 instead of 1000, instead of 990 the total is 1000, so the double counted number is 10. That's how you realize the problem. But this solution, as I told you, has the problem that it requires you to think through the mathematical part, and you cannot do this mentally inside the test. So, is there an alternative process, and what is the quantitative process for this? There's a question from Karan Sharma. Yes, Karan, you want to ask something? Please put it on the chat. Of course, we have the option of unmuting you also if you want to speak. You can ask us for that. We can unmute you there. Anyway, let me show you the process to solve this through logic. And the logical thought process will be this: that if you start solving 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, if you start adding this and you add up to 10, the total of this is 55. And if the total of 1 to 10 is 55, it is but natural that the total of 11 to 20 would be 155. And naturally, 21 to 30 would be 255. Now we know that we have to take our total to 1000 or thereabouts, to just below 1000. So if we keep adding this, we realize when we do 31 to 40 as 355, we realize that the sum of these four numbers here is 820, and that is the sum of 1 to 40. If I had done 1 plus 2 plus 3 up to 40, my total would be 820, which is got by just adding four numbers. And since our target is to reach as close to 1000 in this series as possible, I keep adding numbers further. Plus 41 gives me 861, plus 42 gives me 903, plus 43 gives me 946, and plus 44 gives me 990. And the difference between 990 and 1000 being 10, my double counted number is 10. That's all. So if you look at this solution, and I synopsize what you had to do once you realized that the sum of 1 to 10 is 55. Once you realize that what you have to do is to get a triangular number close to 1000. Once you realize that and you started solving, all you had to do physically, mentally, to solve this problem was to add these eight numbers. and adding 8 numbers should not take you more than 10 seconds. So whatever time you take to get the logic that you need a triangular number just below 1000 plus the 10 seconds is the only solving time in this problem. And why I've picked up this question is not to show you this question per se by itself, but to actually make you try the next one. Have a look at this question now and try to see this. And incidentally, this is a question that came in CAT 2002. Try to solve this one and I'll get back to you. And while solving this, please try to focus or try to feel how easy it now becomes because of what I've just told you. And that is what I was trying to say, that if you reach a question where you can say that, yes, I know the logic, the problem solving experience is totally different. And hence, that is what you have to target when you solve problems like this. Jyoti Ranjan is asking me, if consecutive natural numbers are given not starting from 1, what do you do? So if you're starting from 3, then you subtract 1 plus 2 from that. So Nilesh gives me the right answer now. And Nilesh, tell me how much of a difference knowing this logic and other people, are the other people able to get the answer here? And do you feel how easy it becomes? Yes, Sabyasachi, that's the right answer. Did you experience the difference in your problem solving experience? Jyoti, there's a calculation error. See, the only thing you have to do here is that this problem is about, Sabyasachi says just took 10 seconds. This problem is about missing a number. So when you're adding 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, your total should be 10. And if you miss 3, your total comes down. So your wrong total in this case will be below the correct total. That's all. So in this problem, the wrong total given is 575. So when you want to find the correct total, you have to find it above 575. And now that you know 55 plus 155, yes, Alok Kaushik, that's correct, plus 255 plus 31. So till here it is 465. The next value takes it to 496 plus 32 528 plus 33 561. Devesh, you have reached 561, but you need to go to plus 34 595. 595 instead of 575. The double counted number is 20. Sorry, the missed number is 20. And this is it's almost an unfair advantage. In case you know the process of solving, or if you know the logic to the problem, it is almost an unfair advantage that you get while solving the problem. And that's what actual preparation means. In my view, if you're not preparing for this unfair advantage of having known the question beforehand, your preparation is actually half baked and you're just fooling yourself. Have a look how the same logic again applies in a CAT 2003 problem. So I've shown you a CAT 2001 question, a 2002 question, and now I'm showing you a 2003 question. And if any one of you is thinking that these are CATs which are way off, way old, please remember, please understand, please know that the CAT exams that are happening in the online format are using questions from past CAT papers and the same logics again and again. So every logic is important, and in fact, if you prepare to 100% ideal levels, you would realize that whatever 30 questions you're going to get in quants and DI, whatever 30 questions you're going to get in quants and DI in your test paper inside the exam day, each of those 30 questions has its parallel logics running in question banks outside. So any questions logic you miss during your preparation, it could only mean that you missed out on some question banks somewhere or some logics which you should have created in your mind while you're going ahead with your preparation. There is absolutely actual preparation will take you as close to 25, 26 questions whose logic you know. And Nilesh gives me the right answer here. See, the logic here is again very simple. What is happening here? Yes, Nilesh and Devesh, X is the right answer. What is happening here in this problem is that A is stopping after one. A happens once, B happens twice, C is used 3 times, and D is used 4 times. So what you realize is that when D is ending, this point, the number of terms in the series will be 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, 10. And naturally, after D, if you put 5 E's, then you have to add plus 5 and realize that at this point the series has used 15 terms. So once you realize that, all you have to do is that the first 20 alphabets will end after 210 terms of this series. And to that, if you add the 21st alphabet 21 times, it takes you to 231. The 22nd alphabet 22 times, it takes you to 253. The 23rd alphabet 23 times, it takes you to 276. And if you take the 24th alphabet 24 times, it takes you to 300, which crosses 288. So when you're looking at the 288th term, it's going to be the 24th alphabet, which is naturally X, because X, Y, Z is how the 24th alphabet, the alphabet series ends. So you can see how repetitive logic is a constant theme inside the CAT exam. And as I said, I'm repeating that part again to you. If you miss out on any logic, if you come across the question and across a question in the exam whose logic you do not know, it could only mean that you have missed out something somewhere in your test prep. Because all these chapters are pretty mineable. Whether you talk about a number system, you talk about a progression, you talk about a permutation combination, there's a depth and a width to each of these chapters. If through your preparation you can get to that point, what would happen is that you would naturally be getting that unfair advantage that I'm talking about. And through these three problems, I just showed you how an unfair advantage could be created for you just because you've seen the CAT 2001 question. The 2002 and the 2003 question became very simple for you. So that's what I wanted to talk about. I'll hope to see a lot of you in our program. If you have any questions, I am available on this phone number. You can call me about your preparation, about your joining us, about your strategy, whatever you want. This is my personal phone number. You can call me uh, anytime during the day, normally, uh, preferably in the morning time from 10:30 to 12:31. You can call me. I'll be able to discuss with you whatever you want to, and hope to help you uh, in your dream towards cracking this exam. Now, having talked about that, just to uh, uh, move on from this point, as I said, unfortunately, Meenakshi ma'am is not available because she is completing the last part of her executive MBA from IIM Bangalore. She's doing her executive program from IMB, and she is not available live for the demo sessions till 10th of May. She'll only be available beyond 10th of May for the demo sessions. What we'll be doing, sorry, it's a 10-digit number. It should be ending in a zero. The last digit is also zero, so it's four zeros at the end. My number is 8400290000. Thanks for pointing that out to me. You can call me anytime from 10:30 to 1:30 in the morning. So I've stopped sharing my screen, and I'm now going to play a small pre-recorded session which will show you what the English training is going to be like at Mindworks as we move on. I'm going to mute it, and I'll see you in the regular classes. Thanks a lot. I hope you enjoyed the session, and I hope it was a good learning experience for you. For other joining queries, etc., you have Arun Chaturvedi's number. Arun Chaturvedi himself is a NITI graduate, a high percentile scorer. NITI is, for your information, one of the top 10 B schools, and we have access to a lot of IIM Lucknow graduates and graduates from other B schools also, who have been my students in the past. But one of the things that we focus on is that the entire maths portion and the DI portion is taught by me personally, and the entire English portion is taught by Meenakshi ma'am. Reasoning is shared between Meenakshi ma'am and me. It's shared approximately 50-50. Because for us, every class is an event, and the amount of, when you enter a class and you go out of the class, the idea is that there has to be some solid value add for you. So with that, I'm going ahead with playing that part of the session, which is English.
In today's session, we are going to be discussing as to how to approach in the verbal portion comes from theoretical aspect of reading comprehension, although in a very short manner. I'll not be talking about in a very lengthy manner, just in a short manner to give you a nutshell as to how to approach it. So first of all, in the language preparation, whenever you are solving anything, whether it is a fill in the blank or a parajumble or even comprehension, as today's topic is comprehension, if you're solving comprehension or any part of the language portion, the first thing that you do is when you read the thing, when you read a line or you read a passage or you read a paragraph, your first reaction has to be what is being talked about. So what is the topic? That is the first reaction that there should be in your mind. What is the topic? And the second thing that should hit your mind is what is the main idea. Now, many people get confused as to there are so many ideas there in comprehension. So which of them should be the main idea? Now here, the main idea is nothing but the central backbone of the passage. It is the essence of the passage. It is the crux of the passage around which the whole passage is revolving. So, you might say that there are so many ideas in the comprehension, or there are so many ideas in one page that we read of comprehension. How do we understand which of them is the main idea? So here, what you have to focus on is that you have to understand what is being talked about, what is the topic, and then the most important thing about the topic, the point which is centralized in the topic, around which everything is related. So there might be many ideas, but they all might be side ideas or supplementary ideas which are related to the main idea. Because somewhere or the other, all the ideas are going to contribute to the main idea. So they might be opposing it, they might be supporting it, they might be exemplifying it, they might be explaining it, but somewhere or the other, they are all linked to the main idea. So the main idea is just like a sun, and all the other ideas are like planets surrounding it. So whenever you read a comprehension passage, you have to ask yourself what is being talked about, and then what is the central idea of the passage? What is the meaning? What is the essence of the passage? And once you are done with that, then you have to ask yourself the third question: what is the purpose of writing? Why has this been written? So the purpose of writing. Now, the purpose of writing is important because once you understand why something has been written, whether to give information or to, prove a point, to argument, or, remembering the past, what is the reason why it has been written? Once you understand this, then there's a question that comes in comprehension: what is the style of writing, or what is the tone of the passage? These kinds of questions can be understood or can be solved by the purpose of writing once you've understood it. So the topic is important, what is being talked about. The main idea is important because the questions like what is the information contained in the passage, what is the central idea of the passage, what is the author trying to convey in the passage, what is the essence of the passage, all these questions that come in comprehension are nothing but main idea. They are all asking about the main idea. So once you've understood that, and then why it has been written, whether to inform or to make you laugh, or to it is a sad note, or to criticize, or to argument. Once you understand why it has been written, then the style and the tone can be understood. So if it is argumentative, obviously there will be something trying to be proved as right or wrong. And if it is critical, there's some criticism will be there about something. So once you understand the purpose, the main idea, and the topic, most of the important questions related to comprehension can be solved. And after that, let us come to what are the main question types that are there in comprehension. Now, the main question types in comprehension are basically divided into 4 types. The first type is called a direct question type. Now, I'll be talking about all of them, so I'm just giving you the names as of now. The second type is the indirect or inferential question type. The third type is a specific question type. And the fourth type is a generic or a general question type. So now let's try to understand what are these 3 types and why is it important to understand these type of questions. The first is a direct question type. In this kind of a question, the question is directly, the answer of the question is directly mentioned in the passage. So questions like which of the following has been mentioned in the passage, which of the following has not been mentioned in the passage, which of the following has been said by the author. These kinds of questions are direct question types, and you have to read the whole passage and try to find out the point from where these might have been mentioned or not mentioned and just directly answer them. So in this case, the options that are given will be exactly similar to the information given in the passage. The words might be different, the style of writing might be different, but the message contained will be the same. So in a direct question type, the answer is directly given. Whereas in an indirect or an inferential question type, which is a slightly more difficult question type, the answer is not directly mentioned in the passage. So in this case, you have to infer. And for inferring something, you have to think of one step ahead of what has been mentioned. Generally in comprehension, we don't think about outside information. We only limit ourselves to the information that is contained in the passage. But in an inferential question type, you consider the information contained in the passage and then think of one step ahead. Now, what do I mean by that? I'll give you a very small example. Like if I just verbally tell you about a small paragraph about a small incident, that my friends and I were all planning to go for a picnic, and we were all very excited, and we had packed our bags and packed all goodies to eat and drink there. As soon as we reached the picnic venue, we saw dark clouds in the sky. So we quickly packed our bags again and came back home. Okay, and now the question is, what did the author and his friends infer upon seeing the dark clouds in the sky? So I'll just repeat it to you. My friends and I had been planning to go for a picnic since a long time, and we were all very excited, and we had packed our bags and goodies to eat and drink. And when the day of the picnic came, we got up early in the morning, dressed up and got ready to go. As soon as we reached the venue of the picnic, we saw dark clouds in the sky. So we quickly packed our bags again and came back home. And the question is, what did the author and his friends infer upon seeing the dark clouds in the sky? And I give you 4 options, say. So the first option is rainfall. The second option is heavy rain. The third option is storm. And the fourth option is raining today and tomorrow. Now, as I told you, your inferential question, when you solve an inferential question, you have to base it on the given information and think of one step ahead. So here, thinking one step ahead, what should be the right answer? Can you tell me? All of you who are there in the class today, can you give me which should be the right answer? Rainfall, heavy rain, storm, or rain today and tomorrow? Just quickly. Just quickly type in the question log, please. Okay, so I'm getting answers. Ravindra is saying raining today and tomorrow. Ayush is saying rainfall. Anyone else wants to answer the question? What are you feeling, or what should be the right answer? It's a simple thing. You see the dark clouds and the author and his friends inferred something. What did they infer? The other people who are there in the class? Sneha, Sayed, Priyanka, Prince, and there are many more who are there. Okay, Priyanka says storm, option C. Now, let's try to analyze. As I told you, an inferential question, I told you have to base it on the given facts and think of one step ahead. So when we are talking about one step ahead, you have to go to the closest answer. Now, raining today and tomorrow. Let's start with the fourth option, raining today and tomorrow. Tomorrow is 3 steps ahead. So we cannot go 3 steps ahead when we are talking about an inferential question. You can just go to one step ahead. So raining today and tomorrow becomes 3 steps ahead. So we will consider this as the right option. So the fourth option gets nullified. Now let's look at the third option, that is the storm. When nothing has been mentioned about strong winds, unless you talk about winds, you cannot infer a storm. Just clouds does not mean that a storm is going to come. If there are strong winds also mentioned, then you can infer about a storm. But here strong winds are not mentioned. So a storm is also ruled out because this is again 2 steps ahead. So we cannot think about a storm. Then we come to the next 2 options, that is rainfall and heavy rain. So heavy or light, this is a very subjective issue. By subjectivity, I mean that each person has their own interpretation of heavy rain or light rain. So, if I am in Lucknow, or you are in Delhi, or somebody else is in Mumbai, or somebody is in Jaipur or Rajasthan, or a place where rainfall is very scanty, for that person heavy rain is different. For you and me, and for a person living in Cherrapunji, the heavy rain concept is different. So it is a subjective concept. Each person has their own you know understanding about what is heavy rain or what is light rain. So wherein there is a subjectivity in the option, we try to avoid it in an inferential question. We try to avoid such an answer. So in that case, then the first option, rainfall. Now when you see clouds, the first thing that strikes your mind, the next possible step is rainfall. So clouds and rain are just one step separating each other. So the best answer here would be rainfall. Heavy rain or light rain is something that you cannot predict unless the rainfall has started. Once it has started, then you can say, okay, it is raining heavily or it is raining lightly. But just by the clouds, you and I cannot predict so much. So that is again a little bit of subjectivity in the second option. So that is why we'll go for the first option. So as you saw, in an inferential question, you will avoid subjectivity. You will avoid thinking 3 or 4 or 2 steps ahead. You will just think about what is given, the facts that are given, and you will think of 1 step ahead and answer your question. Okay. Then we come to the third question type, that is a specific question type. Now a specific question type is a question which is asked from one point in the passage. One point in the passage, as in if X is mentioned in paragraph 2, 3 and 4, and the question is, why is X mentioned in paragraph 2 line 3? Then what do we do? For a specific question, we just go to paragraph 2 line 3, read one line above it and one line below it and try to answer it. So for a specific question, you go to that point and just read one line above and below and try to answer. Whereas in opposition, for a generic question or a generalized question, you read the whole passage and then answer the question. So a question like, why has X been mentioned in the passage? Now X has been mentioned at 3 places, paragraph 2, paragraph 3 and paragraph 4. So in a generic question, the question type 4, why has X been mentioned in the passage if it is a question? Then you have to mention why it is there in 2, 3 and 4 paragraphs, all 3. So you have to read the whole paragraph and then answer in a generalized manner. Whereas in a specific question, as opposed to a generic one, when it was just asking why X is mentioned in paragraph 2, we just went to paragraph 2 and answered the question. So the difference between the two is, for a specific question, you go to that point and just use the information at that point to answer it. Whereas for a general question, you read the whole passage and give a generalized answer, like a main idea question. What is the main idea of the passage? Or what is the information contained in the passage? What is the message of the passage? These are generic questions. So for that, you have to read the whole passage and then answer it. You cannot answer from just one particular point which has might be having some facts. Some places it is relevant, but most of the places you have to see the whole passage. So it is always a good idea to read the whole paragraph. Whenever you are solving comprehension, it is always a good idea to read the passage, and many people just read partially and start solving. That's not a good thing, because then there is a big chance of making errors. So you should always first see the question, go to the passage, read the whole passage, and then try to come back to the question. Now, when I say see the question first, I just talk about reading the question. I don't talk about reading the options. You should not read the options first. Only read the question, go to the passage, read it, and then you should have a mental answer for your question. And as soon as you feel, okay, this answer is satisfying my question, then you read the given options and try to match your mental answer with the given options. The mistake that we do is that we try to, read the question, see the option, and then try to start thinking. Let us reverse the process. You see the question, you don't see the option. You read the passage, and you give a answer from your own mind according to your own understanding, and then you match the option. Because if you go the other way around, then we are limiting ourselves from the given options, and our mind does not think properly. So that limitation creeps into it. And then there's a confusion as to how to differentiate between two options. Now, if option A and B are close, you and I know that the person who has created the question knows the difference between option A and B. If we are not able to understand the difference, we are not able, that means there's something lacking in our understanding. So what is lacking in our understanding? That is what you have to ask yourself and start working on it. And then only there will be an improvement. And many a times people give a specific answer for a general question and give a general answer for a specific question. So that is why it is important to understand what is your question type and which answer is suitable for it. Or they give a direct answer for an inferential question and give a inferential answer for a direct question. So again, these are the common errors that people do, and that is what we should be avoiding in comprehension. Although, when we talk about comprehension, we talk about the theory part for a very long time. But in a nutshell, what you have to keep in mind is what is the question type, what is the topic, what is the main idea, why it has been written, what is the style of writing, and then go into the question, read it, read the passage, have a mental answer, match it with the given options, and then come to the right answer. And try to make your answer a tailor-made fit for the question. Sometimes we mark an answer which gives more than what is asked. That is also wrong. And sometimes we choose an answer which is giving less than what is asked. So that is also wrong. We have to choose an option which is fitting the question, which is satisfying the question 100%. So these are some of the important points that you should keep in mind. Now, let's do a quick practice with the question in comprehension. And there's a cat passage which I have kept for you, which you can just read it and try to solve it. Okay, so you will take around 5-6 minutes for reading and 3 minutes for solving. There are 9 questions in it. It is early 90s passage of the cat. So just you take around 9 minutes to solve. All right, 5 minutes to read and 4 minutes to solve. So 9 minutes I'm giving to you. I'm muting myself, and once you finish the page 1 and 2, then I can move on to the next page. So you will just tell me in the question log to scroll and change the page. All right, Kedarnath, I will be talking about that in the next session tomorrow. All right. So I'm muting myself, giving you 9 minutes, then we'll start solving. Okay, I'm moving to the next page. Want me to come back to the first page, then you please type in the question log. You can just take a screenshot of the page so that you can refer to it. Come back to the first page. You can just take a quick screenshot so that you can refer to it. Right, let's start solving. Uh, so many of you have your hands raised, so I assume that you've finished. Let's move back to the passage and start solving. All right. Now, what the approach that I was talking about was, you see the passage, you go to the question, have a mental answer, and then try to solve it. All right. So let's start reading the passage. And it is always important in comprehension to keep asking questions. Keep asking questions as in ask the passage, what, when, what, where, how, what is happening, what is being talked about, who is being talked about, what is the setting, when is it placed, what are the most important characters and the messages contained. These are the questions that you have to keep asking when you're reading the comprehension. So let's do it together quickly, and as and when we come to the questions, you'll give me the answers that you've marked. All right. So we start with Emil Durkheim, the first person to be formally recognized as a sociologist and the most scientific of the pioneers, conducted a study that stands as a research model for sociologists today. So what did Emily Durkheim do? He was the first person, and he was considered as a scientific of the pioneers. Pioneers means one of the first people to be doing something. So, and he conducted a study of sociology, which is considered a research model. So, and what kind of study did he do? His investigation of suicide was in fact the first sociological study to use statistics. So he used data and numbers, statistics, to study sociology in suicide. Now you see it's in inverted commas, and when something is in inverted commas, definitely either it is a name of something or it is a quotation taken from some other source. Here it is a name of his research paper or something that he has written. So in Suicide 1964, originally published in 1897, Durkheim documented his contention meaning his argument, that some aspects of human behavior, even something as allegedly meaning supposedly, as individualistic as suicide, can be explained without reference to individuals. So here now what do we have to focus upon? Durkheim was saying that suicide is a very individualistic thing, very personal thing. Like everybody, each person who commits suicide might be committing it for a different reason. Somebody has a financial problem, somebody has a problem with his job, somebody has a social problem or a problem with his family, somebody has a love affair gone wrong, so they commit suicide. So each person would have a different reason for committing suicide. But here what is Durkheim saying? Durkheim is saying that even people who are people who are committing suicide, and it is an individual thing, but it can be explained without reference to individuals. So definitely he is putting across an argument here, and we have to keep that in mind. Now the next paragraph, like all of Durkheim's work, suicide must be viewed within the context of his concern for social integration. Integration meaning how we are involved with society. Durkheim wanted to see if suicide rates within a social entity meaning a group, organization, or society, are related to the degree to which individuals are socially involved. And what kind of involvement? Integrated and regulated. So integrated means how you are inside the society, how you're connected, and regulated as in how you are obeying the rules and regulations of the society, how the society imposes certain rules on you. So according to that, he wanted to see how the suicide rates are varying according to the degree of integration and regulation with society. Durkheim described three types of suicide: egoistic, anomic, and altruistic. Now egoistic comes from, if you've heard about Sigmund Freud, he talked about the concept of ego, meaning the self. So egoistic is related to self, individuals. Egoistic suicide is promoted when individuals do not have sufficient social ties. So since single, never married adults, for example, are not heavily involved with family life, they are more likely to commit suicide than are married people or married adults. So here he's saying that single people commit suicide more often than married people, because their integration and regulation, if you're staying alone somewhere, your integration and your regulation by the society is less, whereas if you're living in a family, your integration is more. So here they are saying single people have a more tendency, and he called it as egoistic. So single and ego, that is what we will have a kind of a memory tag here. Then the next one, altruistic suicide. Now altruism as a concept means love for others. So here when somebody commits suicide for others, for the sake of others, for the love of others, like army people committing giving their life for the country, or the sati pratha, wherein women used to lay down their lives for the honor of their families. So altruistic suicide meaning the love for the others. So altruistic suicide, on the other hand, is more likely to occur when social integration is too strong, when you're too strongly integrated with your society. The ritual suicide of Hindu widows on their husband's funeral pyres is one example. Military personnel trained to lay down their lives for their country provide another illustration. So this is another example. So the sati pratha or the military people, etc., provide the examples for altruistic kind of suicide. And then comes the third suicide. Durkheim's third type of suicide, anomic suicide, increases when social regulation of individual is disrupted. Disrupted means it is broken. So you are already a part of the society, and suddenly you are no longer a part of it. Something happens due to which you lose connect. So then your social regulation is disrupted and you commit anomic suicide. Now the word anomic comes from the word anomaly. And if in school you might have read in the 8th or 9th standard, at 4 degrees centigrade water expands, anomalous expansion of water, if you remember somewhere or the other. The word anomalous comes from the word anomaly, and the word anomaly means a mistake or a bizarre, an abnormal condition. So here anomic suicide means an abnormal condition, a condition which was not earlier there. There's a sudden change, and that sudden change, that disruption, can be a positive or a negative thing. But too much of a good thing or too much of a bad thing is related to anomic suicide. So sudden abnormal change. This is what anomic suicide is. For example, if you see, like during times of economic crisis, when people lose their jobs, they don't have money. So in the subprime crisis that happened in the US, there was mass suicides. People committed suicide by the dozens. The whole families committed suicides. That was a case of anomic suicide during economic depression. Whereas, people like film stars and models, etc., in the fashion world, they move away from their families. Their social regulation, their social integration is broken. So, and they cannot adjust into the glittering world of glamour. So again, people like those also have a high tendency of committing suicide. So somewhere or the other, either too much prosperity or too little of it creates anomic suicide. Anomic meaning a abnormal condition. So Durkheim's third type of suicide, anomic suicide, increases when the social regulation of individuals is disrupted. For example, suicide rates increase during economic depressions. People who suddenly find themselves without a job or without hope of finding one are more prone to kill themselves. Prone meaning having a tendency to kill themselves. And suicides may also increase during periods of prosperity, too much money. So people may loosen their social ties by taking new jobs, moving to new communities, or finding new mates. So these were the 3 kinds of categories of suicide which he talked about. Using data from the government population reports of several countries, much of it from the French government statistical office, Durkheim found strong support for his line of reasoning. And what kind of support did he find? Suicide rates were higher among single than married people. So single than married people meaning egoistic suicide. Then amongst military personnel and civilians, that is altruistic suicide. Among divorced and married people, egoistic suicide. And among people involved in nationwide crisis, anomic suicide. Now the last paragraph. It is important to realize that Durkheim's primary interest was not in the empirical meaning the observable indicators he used, such as suicide rates among military personnel, married people, and so forth. Rather, Durkheim used the following indicators to support several of his contentions. And what indicators is he talking about? Indicators like social behavior can be explained by social rather than psychological factors. Second indicator is suicide is affected by the degree of integration and regulation within social entities, how you are regulated and integrated. And the third thing, since society can be scientifically studied, sociology is worthy of recognition in the academic world. So he talked about 3 indicators, and the last line says that Durkheim was successful on all 3 counts. All right. So this is the end of the passage. So now we come to the first question, that is, in his study of suicide, Durkheim's main purpose was. Now the main purpose is asking the main idea, and I told you right at the start, you always have to read and understand what was the topic. The topic was suicide. And why was it written? It was written to give an argument about how suicide can be explained without reference to individuals, so the style was argumentative. And what was the main purpose? The main purpose, now see, there are these 3 indicators given at the end. But if you choose one indicator, that is a wrong way to choose a main idea, because main idea cannot be 1 out of 3. Either all the 3 have to be taken into account, or there's something else. So what was the argument? The argument that he based the whole passage upon has to be the main idea. So tell me, question number 1, which one is the correct answer? Which is the main purpose? Can you give me the answers in the question log, please, quickly? Okay, Ravindra says it's 1, And which is the first option? The first option is saying to document that suicide can be explained without reference to individuals. That was given right at the start. That was the starting argument. And he wrote the whole passage explaining that argument. And Priyanka also says it's 1. Other people, what according to you, what should be the right answer? Is it 1 or is it anything else? Okay, Ayush also says it should be 1. Other people, which answer are you going for? Prince also says 1. Okay, right. So first one is the right answer. And if you see the other 3 options, now the second option was saying to provide an explanation in the variation in the rate of suicide. He did not talk about rate of suicide. He talks about kinds of suicide. And the kinds of suicide also he talked about to explain the first argument, that it can be explained without reference to individuals. So the third type, which is the types of suicide, that is the third option, is again, that was a side idea. That was not a main idea. And the fourth one, to document the social behavior can be explained by social rather than psychological factors. He was not talking about social behavior. He was talking about individual behavior can be explained without reference to individuals. So here, yes, the main idea was given as an argument right at the start. You're right, Ravindra. But some cases, the main idea is not given right at the start. If it is given right at the start, that's a top-heavy passage. But in some cases, that is not the case. So here, you're correct. The main idea is given right at the start as the starting argument, and the whole passage was explaining that argument. So the first one is the correct answer. And all of you got it right. That's very good. Now let's go to the second question. According to Durkheim, suicide rates within a social entity can be explained. Now you see, this is a specific question from a specific point. Lines 2 to 5, lines 2 to 5 in the second paragraph. All of Durkheim's work must be viewed within the context of his concern for social integration. Durkheim wanted to see if suicide rates within a social entity, for example, a group organization of society, are related to the degree to which individuals are socially involved, integrated and regulated. So integration and regulation both. That is what both he used to explain. So if he used both integration and regulation, that is what we are looking for in this question. So which option? Absence of social ties, that is integration. Disruption of social regulation, that is again regulation. And nature of social integration, that is again related to integration. So we are looking for both integration and regulation. So all of the 3. So which answer? Option number 4, right. Exactly. So Manmeet, Ravindra, yes, you all are correct. Option number 4. Then let's move on to the third question. Now, single adults are not heavily involved with family life. They are more likely to commit suicide, which Durkheim categorizes. Single people, this is a specific question from a specific point. Single people, ego. Remember? Egoism. So, single and ego, it has to be only one answer, egoistic suicide. If you understood the passage, you don't even need to go and recheck. So, single adults, clearly egoistic suicide, option number 3. Yes, Ravindra, you're correct. Okay, moving on to the next question. Higher suicide rates during rapid progress. Now, rapid progress was abnormal condition. So, abnormal condition was what? Anomaly. And anomaly was what? Remember? Which word are we looking for? Anomaly. So, which one? Rapid progress, anomaly, anomic, clearly. So anomic, that is option number 2, exactly. So anomic, option number 2. Then the fourth one, the fifth one. Ritual suicide of Hindu widows on their husband's funeral pyres. Now Hindu widows, Sati Pratha was what? For the other people, love for the others. Now, option number 4 is saying egoistic. It was not egoistic, it was altruistic. Anomic also it can't be, so option number 3 and 4 are out. It was not, brutality is not mentioned anywhere in the passage. So we will not talk about brutality at all. It was so strong social integration, strong love for the others. So, option number 1. Yes, Prince Raj and Ravindra, you're giving me the right answer here. Fifth, the answer is 1. Then moving to the sixth one, increase in the suicide rates during economic depression. Again, economic depression, abnormal condition. Abnormal condition, the word was anomaly. So which is the answer? 2, yes. 6th is 2, anomic. Then the 7th one. According to Durkheim, altruistic suicide is more likely, love for the others. Altruism was love for the other. Question number 7. People involved in nationwide crisis. Option number 4 was anomic. Divorcees and married people, this was for self, so ego. Single people, again egoism. Military people than among civilians. Now altruism was for the others. So love for the others, military people. So option number 1. So you see, if you've understood the passage properly, you just need to, see your question and your mind will give you the right answer. Now the 8th one. To support his contentions, Durkheim relied on the following indicators. Now you remember the last 3 indicators given in the last paragraph. Let us go back to the passage and see those indicators quickly again. Social behavior can be explained by social rather than psychological factors. Suicide is affected by the degree of integration and regulation within social entities. Society can be studied scientifically. Sociology is worthy of recognition in the academic world. And Durkheim was successful on all 3 counts. So these 3 indicators, and he was successful on all 3 counts. So we are looking for these 3 indicators in that answer. Now let us see. Let us go back to the question. Question number 8. To support his contention, Durkheim relied on the following indicators. We are looking for 3 indicators, remember? So option number 1 is social behavior explainable. Explicable means is explainable predominantly through social factors. Suicide is contingent, means dependent upon the degree of regulation and interaction. Third one is recognizing sociology, to acknowledge that society is susceptible. Susceptible means prone to scientific investigation. So all the 3. So clearly all the 3 has to be option number 4 here, all of the above. So again a very specific question right from one part of the passage, the last 4 lines. Now the 9th question. Basing himself on his own indicators, Durkheim was, now you remember the last line, he was on his indicators, he was successful on all 3 counts. So we are looking for an option which means successful on all areas, right? So successful on all areas, which should be the right one? Please, quickly, 9th question. He was successful on all 3 counts, basing on himself on his indicators. So we are looking for, okay, let's see the options. Now number 1 is saying right on some counts, not others. So this means half right, half wrong. He was totally successful. So half right, half wrong cannot be the right answer. Vindicated, if you don't know the meaning, then you will not be able to find the answer. So here, second option we are keeping on hold. We will come back to the second option. The third is saying wrong but did not realize that he was right. Now this is again half right and half wrong. So this is, he totally knew that he was right. So option number 3 also goes. And fourth is wrong, saying substantially correct but formally wrong. Option number 1 and 4 are totally same. There's nothing different. Here we are looking for totally successful. Now the word vindicated means when you are totally successful, or you are free of all charges. You are totally successful and free of all charges. Vindicated from all charges, free of all charges. So clearly option number 2, as Priyanka and Prince Raj and all of you are giving me the right answer. And even Ravindra. So here 9th was option number 2. But then here the vocabulary was important. You had to know. Now, Ravindra is asking a question. First we read, as you said, first we have to read the passage and then the question and then read the passage. No, Ravindra, I said first see the question and then go back to the passage and come back to the question. It does not take much time. See, I discussed the whole thing with you line by line. Okay, and it took us 20 minutes. If you do it by yourself, it will not take you more than 9 minutes. So 9 minutes for 9 questions is good enough by all angles. And in the CAT passages now, they are smaller and there are around 3 to 4 questions. So you take around 5 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes. That's good enough time. And the more you practice and the more you make yourself comfortable with different types of writing styles, your time limit will decrease. So your speed of reading and solving is a direct function of how well read you are. The more well-read you are, the faster and the easier to solve it becomes. So that is one thing which you should improve. Immediately your level of accuracy, and that will your speed of reading and solving will also be faster. Okay, thank you, Ravindra. All right, so this is what I wanted to discuss in the English portion, and this is a very small demonstration of how you should be solving comprehension, and obviously in the classes we will be doing it in much greater detail. But the thing that I want you to keep in mind, I mean, today's class you've attended, and one thing that you have to keep in mind is you have to be very careful when solving comprehension, and you have to always understand the passage properly. If you understand it properly, now tell me, are you going to forget this passage next week or within 10 days? If I ask you about egoistic suicide, are you going to forget it? If you have understood it properly, are you going to forget this? Yes or no? I assume you will not forget it, right? So what did I do? The passage is like a map. The clearer you know how to solve, you know how to look for the map. You know, just like a map of India, and you're trying to find Chennai or Mumbai or Tiruvananthapuram. The better you know the map, the easier it is for you to find the answer. Similarly, in comprehension, the better you know the map, the faster and the more your accuracy level is to solve it. Okay. Usage questions, etc. I'll be talking about later, Prince Raj. Just now this time for the quants demo. So I'm giving you a break for 2 minutes, and Arun sir will start his demo within 2 to 5 minutes. All right. Just stay logged in, and thank you very much for coming for the session. Hope to see you in class soon. Bye-bye. Please stay logged in. Arun sir will come within 2 to 5 minutes. All right. Thank you. I'm muting myself. Bye-bye. We'll start in a moment or two. All right.
Hello everyone, this is Arun Trivedi. We are ending the session now. I hope you like the session. If anyone wants to speak anything, he or she can raise their hand. If you have any query, I have given you my number. You can call me. Okay? Okay then, good night. Good night everyone.
The organizer has